I remember the way his hands trembled, just a little, when he pressed the neural interface against her bare forearm. The hangar was all blue halogen haze and the low, constant hum of the Symbiotech's living circuits. Nira's breath caught, sharp and unguarded, as the warplate's adaptive camouflage flickered, radiating the heat of Elias's skin so close to hers. For a second, the suit didn't know where she ended, and he began. Neither did I, honestly. I don't think they even noticed me standing there, watching the way their gazes locked, her eyes fierce, his searching, both of them holding on to something invisible and necessary. But that was the peak. The moment the warplate became more than armor, became a bridge. Truth is, you have to see where it started to understand why it mattered. It was just after 0200 when Elias Rowe started his shift in the Helios 17 workshop. The place always smelled like ozone and old coolant, the air thick with the pulse of Kitharin biotech, half machine, half something else. He moved with the kind of focus you only get from too many nights alone with broken things. I watched him work, sleeves rolled, hands stained with sealant and hope, patching up a warplate that looked like it had survived a god's tantrum. Then Nira Salanth strode in, her own armor trailing sparks and leaking blue-green fluid. She didn't flinch, not even when the mag clamps failed, and the chest plate hit the deck with a sound that made everyone in the hangar wince. She just looked at Elias, jaw set, and said, "I need it combat ready by dawn." No apology, no explanation. Just the weight of command and the trust that he'd deliver. He started the diagnostic, mapping fracture patterns across the warplate's surface. I could see the way his brow furrowed as he traced the micro-fractures, lines that didn't match any battlefield wear he'd cataloged before. There was a rhythm to it, the way he ran his scanner over the armor, the way she watched him, arms crossed, trying not to let the pain show. The warplate was more than gear to her. It was a second skin, a record of every fight, every close call. When Elias found the first anomaly, a fracture that spiraled out from the neural coupler, he paused. "This isn't shrapnel," he muttered, mostly to himself. "It's targeted, like someone knew exactly where to hit." Nira's eyes narrowed. She didn't say it, but I could feel the question hanging in the air. Who's supplying the insurgents with tech that can do this? The repair list grew. Biomechanical threading had to be rebuilt, neural pathways recalibrated, and for that, Nira had to wear the partial suit. Let the interface read her signals while Elias tuned the system. I remember the way the air changed, charged almost, when he slid the gauntlet over her hand, their fingers brushing. The warplate's camouflage shimmered, confused by the proximity, and for a heartbeat, the two of them were outlined in shifting light, neither fully visible nor apart. He isolated her neural frequency, hands steady now, voice low. "Almost there. Just breathe." She did. And I swear, in that moment, the warplate wasn't the only thing holding together by sealant, superstition, and genius. I saw the way the alarms shattered the quiet, red strobes slicing through the blue, klaxons rattling the bones of Helios 17. Nira was already moving, warplate sealing around her in a hiss of living metal and memory. Elias's scanner flared with warning. Calibration drift, power bleeding off in unpredictable arcs. He caught her arm, just for a second, the heat of his palm against the cold armor. "You're not at full sync," he said, voice rough. She just nodded, eyes locked on the hangar doors. The kind of trust that doesn't need words. Then Lieutenant Ibarra's voice crackled over comms. "Perimeter sensors down, insurgents in the wire." Protocol said Elias should stay behind, but I watched him grab his kit, sling it over his shoulder, and run after her into the night. Sometimes you don't get to choose the moment you become necessary. Outside, the air was thick with the smell of scorched earth and ionized air. The warplate's camouflage kept flickering, trying to decide if it should hide or fight. Nira moved like a force of nature, but I could see the strain. Her jaw clenched, the suit's servos whining as Elias patched in, fingers flying over the diagnostic pad. He rerouted power, recalibrated the neural interface on the fly, sweat beating at his temple. Every time their eyes met, it was like the world narrowed to just the two of them and the fragile thread of connection they were holding together. Under fire, with tracer rounds sparking off the hull, Elias did something I'd never seen before. He rewired the comms, splicing human and Kithran protocols, building a translation matrix in real time. Suddenly, voices from both sides, human and alien, came through, overlapping, harmonizing. Orders, warnings, hope. For a few minutes, the perimeter held. The warplate became the bridge, just like I'd seen in that hangar. One suit, two souls, a whole army listening. But the neural load was too much. I saw Naira stagger, the warplate's lights flickering, Elias's hands shaking as he forced a shutdown before the feedback could burn her out. The world snapped back to chaos, gunfire, shouts, the taste of copper in the air. But the line held. That's what mattered. After, in the quiet that follows survival, I watched them work side by side, turning combat data into something new. They mapped the overload, found the fault lines, and built a distributed network, spreading the processing load across every suit in the unit. No more single points of failure. No more risking everything on one connection. And I remember the way Naira looked at Elias then, like she was seeing him for the first time, and also like she'd always known him. 6 weeks later, aboard the Meridian Crown, they stood together before the War Council. The flagship's briefing room was all polished alloy and the faint scent of ionized air. But I could still feel the echo of that night in the way they stood, shoulder to shoulder, unbreakable. They answered every question, fielded every doubt, and when the admirals pressed them, they just looked at each other and smiled. The data spoke for itself. Mixed unit performance gains, seamless translation, trust built in the crucible of necessity. General Price, Admiral Cathera, and Admiral Shen made it official. Co-directors, permanent authority, the next assignment already waiting. But I remember the moment after, when the room emptied and the world went quiet again. Naira reached for Elias's hand, just a brush of fingers, and he didn't let go. Not this time. Truth is, I don't think the war ever really ended. But something else began that night. A partnership, a legend, a bridge no weapon could break. I saw it myself, and I'll never forget the way they looked at each other, as if the whole universe had finally come into focus.